Hey, how you doing, folks? So let us talk about pretty chords and about how to make music more interesting through the use of pretty chords. So I love chords that are really interesting to listen to, very lush chords. It took me a while to get my head around what they are and how I might use them. Because, you know, if you get one of those chord books and it's got 1,000,001 chords in it, what it doesn't tell you is how to use them. And I was lucky enough to come across a book that actually did explain how to use them. Can't find it anywhere online at the moment, so I'm not even going to mention it to you. But it really helped me understand that there are many chords you can substitute for the chords you would typically play, and these chords have flavor and color and mood and texture to them that your standard major and minor chords don't have. Now, so if you're someone who's just used to playing major and minor chords, right, growing beyond that is really important in terms of developing your musicianship. Even a simple thing like changing from a major chord to a major seventh chord, right, adds a different flavor. And they're easy changes to make because they're just changing the root note, the high root note, whatever the highest root note in the chord is, a semitone. In this case, D to C sharp, or C to B, right? In that case, so or A to G sharp. But it can get a little bit more involved with that, and of course it helps to get more involved than that with your music, because the idea is you want to lead the listener's ear in a certain direction, to a certain conclusion that sounds correct, that sounds like where it should be. You're basically having them agree with what they're hearing as being what they should have heard, or what would have benefited them to hear. So I'm going to use the example of in this one, the dominant 7th chord in the key of D major. So the dominant 7th chord is an A7, and it's the chord that makes you want to go back to the D, right? If D D's your root chord, then A7 is the chord that makes you want to go back to it. So rather than just playing A7, and I'm going to use very, very basic strumming here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We're going to substitute some chords for each of these strums. Now, first one we're going to do is very straightforward, and it's just take everything off, right, and play open A, right, open D, open G, and open B together, right? And I would grab them so that you're not hitting the E strings, although you can play the high E string if you really want. And what that is a G chord, right? G, B, and D on an A bass. Right? So you hear that? Now, I said you can play the open E string, so what that means when you play the E string, right, is that you are adding the E note into the G chord. So G, B, D, D is the 5th, right? E would be the 6th, what we would call the 13th, because it's an octave up from the root, right? So we would call that the 13th. So you're playing actually a G13 on an A bass. Sounds high tech, but it's just that, right? Anyway, and you could use that as a lead up to the A7. So here's your E minor, then your your G13 on an A bass for 2 strums, then your A7, then back to your D. So what else could we do? Well, let's look at that G chord. Okay, we could also make it a minor for one of the beats. Now to do that, I'm going to change the shape, right? And I'm going to play high on the high E string. I'm going to bar across the 3rd fret here for the high 3 notes, and then I'm going to put my I'm either going to play the A here, or I'm going to play it open. You choose which one. I'm going to do it this way. Okay, and I'm on the 5th fret here with my little finger on the D string, and that's a G minor on an A bass. So it's that. So you can hear that the B, right, is going to a B flat, which makes it minor, and then back to the D. So we have like our E minor, and we have our G, our G on A bass, and then our G minor on an A bass, and then back to the D. And of course we can use the A7th at any time, because the true chord here is the A7th. Start with the A7 and then change to the G or the G minor. Sorry, just pick your chord, David. So and go back that way, or start with the G minor on A, and then resolve to the A7th, and then to the D. So you could do that. Now, the other thing you could do was go back to the G on the A bass, and I'm going to play it like, instead of doing the minor, I'm going to put my 2nd finger down here on the G string on the 4th fret. That's the B, so I'm making it major again. Remember, the B flat made it minor, so sharpening that would, the B would, or raising the B a semitone back to B would be, the B flat, sorry, back to B would make it major. And I'm going to shift, right, the 1st finger and 2nd finger down a fret. And I'm going to make it into what I would call an A13 flat 9 chord. Okay, so that would. Very jazz sort of. Right, very jazz sounding chords. Now, the other thing you can use is the diminished. Now, the diminished chord in a key is the 7th chord of the key. So if we're in D, the 7th is a whole step beneath that, right, which would be the C sharp. Sorry, it's a semitone beneath the C sharp diminished in this case. So so we can use that as well in place of any of these other chords. To lead back into it. Now, a diminished chord is just minor thirds stacked one on top of the other. So if you start with a C sharp and you stack a minor third on that, so if we start with a C sharp and we stack an E on top of that, we stack a G on top of that, right, we've got our diminished chord. And then if we stack a B flat on top of that, we have our diminished chord. So, and I would play that like this, and you can slide it up a minor third, and you still get exactly the same chord, just different arrangements, different what would you call it, inversions of the chord. So you can also use that one. Right? Okay, so augmented chords. Augmented means sharpened fifth, right? So it's a major chord with a sharpened fifth. So if I'm to take an A and a C sharp and an E as an A major chord, and I raise the E, right, sharpen it to what would actually be called an E sharp, but what we normally call an F, right? Same note, just different way of talking about it. We raise it up a semitone, then we end up with our augmented chord. Now I find augmented chords make my ear want to go to a minor chord, right? Like a I'm not sure why I always hear that, but that's to me where I would use an augmented chord, is if I was maybe wanting to switch to a minor then. And again, it's substituting for the fifth chord. Okay. Now, it's really helpful if you just start looking for the extra notes or the change notes in your open chords, like your A7. That way you're not going to have to learn a whole bunch of different new shapes, right? Or and you can just easily understand that you know, to make an A7th, right, into an A7th augmented chord, all I have to do is change the E up, you know, move it up a semitone. In in this case, which is putting my first finger down on the first fret on the high E string. See, it just sounds better to me because D minor has an F in it. So the augmented chord, right, it tends to lead back to it. Or but it seems to work better in minor keys, in my personal opinion. Very dire straitsy, right? So that's that one. Now the other one I mentioned a little while ago actually was inversions, right? The word inversion. Now an inversion is when you take the notes of a chord like C, E, and G, and C would normally be the root note, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to play them in a different order, meaning first inversion would be E, G, and C, and a second inversion would be G, C, and E, right? So you're just playing the same notes, but with a different note at the bottom, and you're basically taking the three notes and you're moving the bottom one up to the top, and then that's your first inversion. Then you're taking the new bottom one and moving that to the top. That's your second inversion. So with those, you can use those again. Again, to lead back to your chords, right? Or away from your root chord. Instead of just going straight from your D chord to your fifth chord, you might make your fifth chord a first inversion by playing the C sharp as the bass. So it starts to get more interesting. Just based on adding in those couple of options. Now, inversion chords are just really good for stepping through music. And I use them all the time. Just for stepping through. Let's see, what else? Well, I mean, that's a really good start, right? Just those few. So have a look at basic chords, like your D major chord, right? And ask yourself, if I move just one note, in this case I'm changing the A, right? The fifth upper semitone, I'm making it augmented. What sound does it have, right? And of course, it can make your music a lot more interesting than just standard old root third and fifth. Yeah, Well, have a play with that. See how you go. See if anything comes from what I've shared with you here today. And start simple. Just use the D, the A, the E minor, and use that to set up the. And of course, I'm adding in notes as well because I'm thinking in terms of melody. That's going to lead back, or open E, or it's going to lead back to the D, right? Or it might be that I want to come up from the C sharp, or I might want to come down from the A being the fifth, right? That So use your ear, be musical, and have fun with it. Don't be scared by these funky chords. They're not scary at all. They're actually really, really helpful tools. And most of all, have fun with it. Just dig into it, dive into it, and add them here or there where you're comfortable, and slowly build on them. It's really worth taking the time to fool around with some of these sounds to create something that's just more interesting for your ear and for your listener. Anyway, that's all I have to share with you today, so you take care.